Good morning, eighth graders. Happy Tuesday. Happy brand new week. I hope you all had an amazing 3-day weekend. I'm going to go ahead and get started with letting you know what we're doing this week with these short periods. You don't have a lot of extra time. Remember, anything that you don't get done in your allotted language arts time, that's what you're supposed to be doing in the afternoon during independent work time. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First things first today is our book talk. So our book talk is right here. It is called Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. So as you guys are all aware, over the summer there's been a lot of marches and protests and a lot of energy around the Black Lives Matter movement. And so this just kind of gives a history of racism and where it came from and what it was like during the 1800s and even before, and on and on and on to today's current age. So it kind of provides a roadmap and a history of how we got where we did today. So anyway, it's really a good book. It is history, but it's written in a really energizing, interesting, modern way. It's by Jason Reynolds. If you know any of his work, he's a really good author for teenagers today, and he's amazing. So anyway, highly recommend this book. If you are interested at all, email me. I have 2 copies in our classroom. Going on to our planner this week, we are still working on heroism, and today we're going to be doing close reading again. So that's just something that we're doing. We're doing another article of the week this week. You guys might be getting sick of them. Sorry if you are, but I want to make sure that you are really strong in this assignment. I am working to get them all graded as soon as possible so that your work this Friday, what you turn in, you know what you were doing right and you know what you were not doing right from last week. And then, of course, the week before, which those are all graded. So this will be the last one that we do for a while. Next Tuesday or Monday, we are starting The Outsiders, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And that will also go a little bit along with our hero unit. So that's that. So today we're going to read this new article, doing a close reading called Help Him Up, A Witness's Account of Panic on a Subway Platform. Again, here are the instructions for Article of the Week. Today's video is Kids Find Direction by Getting Their Hands Dirty. And then you need to be reading your own independent reading book for 25 minutes. So I'm going to go over this pretty quickly because we have gone over it the last 2 weeks. So what is close reading? Close reading is when we dive right in. We don't do a lot of pre-writing activities. You read the passage at least twice. You read with a pencil or a highlighter, which, as we all know, is hard to do on a screen. But if you can print out the article, that would be helpful. You kind of notice things that are confusing, interesting, and there's that and again that I keep not taking off. I'm going to just take that off right now. Okay. You're making connections to other things that you've read, seen, or know of. You're discussing the reading with others, and you are responding to text-dependent questions. So that is many of the aspects of close reading. So when we read the article of the week, these are the 2 steps we'll be doing today. First, you're going to read the article quietly to yourself. You're going to read slowly for enjoyment. You're not trying to, understand it perfectly or be able to answer every little question at this time. You're just reading it to read it. And then pay attention to the structure of the article, if there are tables, maps, etc. After you do that, you reread the article to yourself. Again, this time I'm going to read it to you, just still trying to get you in that habit and getting back into school and getting your reading stamina and fluency rejuvenated. So in the second reading, this time you're reading with a more critical eye. You're reading to get more information to gain a better understanding. You're going to underline the words you don't know. So if a word comes across, you have no idea what it means, underline it. If there's a whole sentence or section that's confusing, underline the whole section. Since you're not going to be underlining on a screen, if you do not print out the article, you can even write down the paragraph number and then write a little note about what's confusing or what's important, things like that. So again, write in the margins if you can. If not, take notes, questions that you have, your thoughts and feelings about the article, and then use symbols to show your thinking. And again, some of my favorites are a star, exclamation point, happy sad face, or a question mark. And again, you can make up any symbols you want and use any symbols you wish. So then, here it is in bigger text. This is read the article quietly to yourself. Here is the link right here. So if you want to push pause on me and go ahead and click that and read the article to yourself, you should do that. So I will sit here while you push pause. All right. Now you should have read the article by yourself. Again, we're not in class together. I'm not there to make sure you are doing that. That's where your own responsibility and your own dedication to your education come into play, because it is important that you've read it twice. So now I'm going to read it to you as you follow along. So hopefully you can have the two tabs open. You can still hear my voice, yet you are reading the article. Okay, so Help Him Up, A Witness's Account of Panic on a Subway Platform by Michael Wilson. And the little blurb there says more than 5 million people ride the New York subway every day. In this article, Michael Wilson, a reporter for the New York Times, describes his personal account of a frightening incident and the New Yorkers that were willing to help. The man stood bent at the waist, but sideways, as if he were doing some deep stretching. He was incoherent and filthy, his pants around his ankles and boxer shorts intact. Asleep on his feet, with his head buried in his puffy coat, he leaned with an arm outstretched against a metal pillar. The pillar, deep below ground in the 2nd Avenue subway station in Manhattan, was all that stood between him and the platform edge and the tracks of the Brooklyn-bound F train. It was Saturday afternoon, April 29th. Everyone who came down the stairs to the train platform saw him, myself included, and everyone did the same thing, watched him. He wobbled this way and that, never straightening up or lowering himself to the ground. He just swayed side to side, his full weight against the pillar. Maybe some people thought about approaching him, as I did, and took another look at those fallen pants, the streaked pale legs, as I did, and decided to keep their distance. I did. A few women walked over to the emergency call box and spoke to someone through a speaker. They said a homeless man looked as though he might fall on the tracks. A few minutes passed this way, and then it happened. The man lurched and lost his hold on the pillar and plunged over the edge of the platform to the tracks below. It was a very specific New York City preoccupation and plotline, a horror and a drama that grips the imagination and lays down a gut check. What happens when someone falls on the tracks and can't save himself? What would you do if you were there? What if a train was coming? Which one is the electrified and fatal third rail? These stories typically have two endings, and I've written them both. The happy endings introduce another stranger to the ranks of that New York subset of rescuers, the subway hero. I interviewed one, an actor named Chad Lindsay, in 2009 after he jumped down and pulled a drunken man out of the path of a downtown-bound train in Pennsylvania Station. He in turn evoked the hollowed name of another, Wesley Autry, who a couple of years later had laid down on top of a man having a seizure between the rails and waited as the train passed over them. Couldn't have done that, Mr. Lindsay said. Did what I did, but I couldn't have done that. Mr. Lindsay had no warning that day. The guy wasn't there 1 second and on the tracks the next. On that afternoon at 2nd Avenue, we all watched a similar situation play out. Time slowed, a woman screamed. I pulled my messenger bag off my shoulder and let it drop. I was aware behind me of another woman shouting into the call box. There were dozens or more people nearby. I distinctly remember a man yelling, "For God's sake, stay away from that third rail." I ran several feet to the edge of the platform where the man had fallen. He was coming toward me, not because he had suddenly sobered up, but because there was another man down there already, pushing him toward safety. I bent down and grabbed 2 fistfuls of a puppy coat below its shoulders. Other hands reached down on either side of me and grabbed 2. We all pulled without a word, and up he came. We dragged him away from the edge. I looked back for the second man, but he wasn't on the tracks. He had already vaulted back up to safety. People clapped and shouted and smiled at one another. The young man who had jumped down to help, wearing a green jacket, walked around in circles by himself, shaking a little. 2 Metropolitan Transportation Authority workers, whom I had seen upstairs earlier, tending to a MetroCard machine, appeared and spoke to the homeless man, who had pulled his pants up. "I'm okay," he told them. "I'm just dirty." "You can't stay here," they told him. "You have to go back up into the street." A police officer arrived, and I lost track of the man. I approached the rescuer in the green jacket and introduced myself. His name was David Capuzzo, 26. He was coming from his job waiting tables at Rosie's, a Mexican restaurant just outside the station entrance above. He was born in Bogota, Colombia, and adopted by American parents. He was raised in the suburbs of New England. He is an illustrator, lives in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and waits tables to make extra money. He was heading to his girlfriend's apartment in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, when he entered the station. "I see the guy," he said later. "I pictured myself helping him, but I didn't. I just kept looking back at him and looking at everybody else look at him. Eventually, he lost interest. I just got caught up on my phone. Then I heard all these ladies yell." Mr. Capuzzo saw the man on the tracks. He was hunched over, he said. "He's kind of like wobbling." Mr. Capuzzo said he called out, "Press the button, press the button," and walked in a quick circle. Then he acted. "I just jumped down," he said. "I grabbed his legs together and I stood up. This is a time-sensitive issue. I don't know where the train is." He shouted, "Help him up." He felt the man rise from his arms, lifted to the platform, and then made his own escape. "I jumped up like no problem," he said. "I hurt my hand a little bit. It all happened so quickly. It was a blur." Mr. Capuzzo is not even certain he was the only person who jumped down to help. Several minutes later, the F train, in typical weekday fashion, finally arrived, its potential victim long gone. Mr. Capuzzo got out after a few stops. He texted his girlfriend. "Guy fell, so I had to jump on the tracks. Now I have a cut on my hand." He called his mother. Both were upset with him at first. "Mad I jumped on the tracks in the first place," he said, but more thankful that he was okay. In the days since, Mr. Capuzzo has looked for the homeless man near the subway. No sightings yet. The man looked so incoherent, he might not even remember what happened. He most likely would not recognize the man who jumped down and helped him. The police and fire departments had no record of calls regarding the incident. Mr. Capuzzo said that before he jumped, he remembered an old public service announcement. 20 people are thinking someone else called about the gas leak," he recalled thinking. "If nobody does anything, he's going to die." He did something. And someday, another person will save someone on the tracks, and that tale will be told, and that rescuer might look back and remember the one from 2017 and the part about the pants around the ankles. The guy who grabbed the legs and lifted him up like that couldn't do it. Did what I did, but couldn't do that. All right, so that is this week's article. I really liked it. I hope that you did too. Tomorrow we will be writing our summary. We will also be having a digital literacy lesson. I have to teach you one digital literacy lesson this whole school year, and I'm just wanting to knock it out. So we're going to do that tomorrow. Okay, have a beautiful day. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching.